Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to do a DIY Dollar Tree Farmhouse Christmas stocking, and I'm going to teach you guys some hand sewing tips 101. I got inspired by the Target's Instagram page. They had this really cute fabric that reminded me of these dish towels from the Dollar Tree. So we're going to use one package of dish towels as well as one kitchen hand towel, and then needle and thread. And then we're going to use the scissor. I'm going to actually use my pinking shear just because the terry cloth sometimes has a tendency to want to unravel. And then you're going to need some straight pins if you want. That's optional. If you're a good sewer, then you won't need it. But this is just the sewing tips 101. The other thing that I didn't mention that you need is a Christmas stocking that you're going to use for a template, but you don't necessarily have to do this. There's plenty of templates, free outlines online that you can printables, but it's just easier to actually have a stocking to measure by. Find a stocking of the shape and size that you like, and you can mimic it. Now, this stocking happened to fit perfectly on one of these these kitchen hand towels. I was able to get both halves of the stocking just by laying it the way you saw I laid it off center. We can do that with this towel because it is homespun and it is basically the same on both sides. It's not a printed towel, because if it was like a printed pattern, then we would have to make one of them flipped over to be the opposite. But since it's not, we can go ahead and lay them side by side like that. Okay? Now, you can do this with other fabrics. There's plenty of inexpensive fabrics that you can get at Walmart or lots of fabric outlets. 100%, definitely. This is just how we're making it from the Dollar Tree. And like I said, this fabric really did remind me of these towels that we made the no-sew pumpkins with. Now, you can do this as a no-sew project for sure. But what we just did is I just pinned around all of the sides except the top. And now I'm just measuring the collar, the cuff, excuse me, that I want on mine. And I'm going to show you two techniques, or two styles for the finish on this. So I'll show you, but one of them is just going to be standard sewing, like the standard pattern, and one of them is going to give like a more rustic farmhousey feel. I'll show you that what I'm talking about in a second. But for the basic sewing tips, if you guys don't know, I'm showing you here how to thread a needle. It is a really tiny hold needle, and I'm a really old lady who can't see. But basically, I like to cut it with a scissor so I get a nice clean. I used to bite it with my teeth, but now I cut it with a scissor, and then you wet it. If you ever see Grandma licking the end of a thread before she threads the needle, and that's why. When you wet it, it kind of keeps them woven together. Then I pull the thread through, match the ends, the opposite ends of where the needle is, and then tie it into a knot. I like to do 3, especially with this like open weave fabric, but I like to just be secure and do 3 times. Okay, and just wrap it around my finger just like that. And now we're going to get started. I'm going to show you, this is what's called a blanket stitch. But no matter what stitch you use, I want to show you how we're going to lock that first thread in so we don't lose our knot. So you're going to pull your thread through wherever you're going to start. And don't pull it all the way. What we're going to do is we're going to put the needle through between the 2 pieces of thread. And what that's going to do is that's going to keep the knot from pulling through. No matter what your weave of fabric that you're working on, if you do this, your knot will not come through. Knot. See what I did there? Okay, and then you're going to finish that first in and out stitch. Now with a blanket stitch is basically you're going to go in to the front, you're going to wrap the thread around the needle, and then pull up. And you're just going to repeat that. Now, how far apart your stitches are and how deep your stitches are does depend on a few things. It depends on what you're using, what need you have for, like, okay, so if it's utilitarian, then you want to make sure your stitches are really close together so that things don't fall out. If you're doing it decorative, you might want to space them a little further apart. This is called a blanket stitch because it's how you finish off the edge of a blanket. I'm sure you guys have a million little fleece throws around your house that have little blanket stitches on the end. But what this does, I've always found to be a very secure way to sew any seam. When I was young, I learned how to sew by necessity because I wore sweatpants mostly through high school and middle school. And what I would do, because I'm a chunky monk, is that I would wear out the thighs in the sweatpants. So I would always after laundry day, I'd have to like sew my pants up to wear them to school or whatever. So this became like a necessity. I just master sewer or whatever for that reason. I'm not really a master. I just said that. Okay, and then we're just going to continue along the whole way. Now, if we were doing this for decorative purposes, you can mark, and it's a really cool tip to mark on your finger. You just put however far apart you want your stitches to be, and then you can mark, follow along with your finger. But we're not doing that, okay? And I am using black thread on this white towel because we're going to leave this inside out, basically. We're gonna leave the stitches on this because it's a sort of decorative blanket stitch. I wanted to show you guys how it would look both ways. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna turn the collar right side out, but we're gonna leave this inside out, basically, and just to show you the two finishes that you can get. Okay, and this is just repeated throughout the entire length of the stocking. Everything except for the top where all of the goodies go, you want to sew all the rest of the sides. Now you're going to have to rethread your needle. There's a lot of sewing in this project. Most everything except the part where I showed you up close is like 4 times speed because though this is a super easy project, because hand sewing is super easy. I mean, a lot of people are intimidated by it, but there's no reason to be. And here's the thing. Here's the trick I'll tell you. If you make mistakes with hand sewing, it's a lot easier to take the threads out of hand sewing than it is of sewing machine. But anyway, this is super easy, but it is time consuming. You know, anything that's this much stitching is going to take a little bit of time. And with my carpal tunnel, you'll see me shake my hand every once in a while. It was just like making my hand numb, which is why I don't really hand sew as much as I used to. Oh, no more needlepoint and crocheting. If I do, it has to be a project that I give myself plenty of time to finish. Okay? So, see what I did there? You're going to have to rethread your needle a few times. And I know you would think, hey, Jeri, why don't you just put more thread on it the first time? It will not on itself and will become extremely unmanageable. More often than not. So it's better to make smaller sections. I think I probably do, once it's folded, about 18 inches at a time of thread. And when you do a blanket stitch, it does take up more thread than if you did a running back stitch or a running stitch or just a back stitch. Depends on who you're talking to. It would definitely take up more. It takes up more thread, but it also, that's how I feel it makes it that much more secure. Okay. But like I said, we're doing this. It's decorative. We're going to keep it on the outside. If I had embroidery floss, I totally would have used embroidery floss. That would make this look so pretty. But I'll tell you that if you don't want to have the raw edge out, then I will teach you. I'll tell you exactly what to do to make it like a traditional stocking. Not traditional. That doesn't make sense. But you know what I'm saying. All right. I know, just that I was about 3/4 of the way done and I was like, oh, my hand. So one thing we're going to do before we get to all of the other finishing touches. I didn't mention we cut the dish towel in half. This particular dish towels from the Dollar Tree are actually like more rectangular. So what we did was we put them long ways. We cut long ways in it. And I wasn't worried about folding it over and making a pretty edge because we're going to use the actual factory edge from the manufacturer to be like the finished edge of the stocking cuff. Okay? So now we're just getting to close to the top. I know I keep shaking my hand. It was getting really bad at one point. But anything for you guys. Again, if I have a sewing project like this that I want to hand sew for some reason, I will give myself a couple of days to actually do it. But obviously filming the video, I couldn't give myself a couple of days. And I do have a wrist, like a carpal tunnel band that I wear. I, for the life of me, cannot find it anywhere in my house. It's like the most bizarre thing that's gone missing. So that also helps sometimes. All right. But as we finish up, we're also going to make the hanger out of the scrap of the dish towel. So when you make sure that when you lay the stocking on the dish towel that you leave the widest of the factory edges, because we're going to use that for the loop. All right. And now we're going to work on the cuff. And I wanted the cuff to be this coordinating but opposing fabric. That's why I picked these two. So what we're doing is we're going to sew from the finished hem. I pinned the two sides together. We're going to sew from the finished hem. Just sew down as wide as you want your cuff to be with a little bit of a seam allowance. It usually just about a ½ inch is more than you need. Okay, and then when I realized where I want it, then I went ahead and I cut both pieces. So I could just work with the fabric that I'm working on. And it was nice, this particular set that I had was sewn really well, like professionally almost, that the grids really did help lay, you know, really did help with my cutting. They were sewn squarely on the grids, let's put it that way. Okay? And then we're going to sew up both sides once we've determined how wide we want them, and depending on the size of your stocking, you're going to have to customize your band. You want it to be as wide as your stocking, okay? And it could be wider if you want to, but it just will look weird. It'll look like those, I mean, not that the boot socks are weird, but you know how the boot socks have like the ruffle on the top? That's what it would look like. All right, so now for the effect that I'm getting, I am going to leave the stocking not turned out. We're going to turn the cuff inside out and place it on the inside of the stocking so we can sew that edge. If you wanted a finished, completely right sides together kind of a stocking, you want to turn your stocking right sides out before you do this step. Okay? But it is important to sew this tucked in so that when you fold it over, your seam is actually hidden, and I'll show you that on the finished product. Okay, but now that I've finished with the tube, just about, and we'll turn the tube inside out, then we'll fit it in the stocking. Let's see. Okay, so there it is. We fit it inside the stocking. Now before we're just going to pin the edges together, basically where the seams were. We're going to line the seams up, and we're just going to put one pin on each side. But now what we're going to do is we're going to make the hanger. So I've just cut right up to the seam of the piece of edging on the towel. And I've cut it as long as, twice as long as you want the hanger to be, because you're going to fold it in half, okay? And then I secured it with a couple of stitches. So I ran 3 blanket stitches over the edge just to secure the loop. So when I went to go insert it, I didn't have to worry about whether or not I was going to drop the other half of the hanger. But what you want to do, whether you're doing the traditional stocking or this raw edge stocking, you want to pin it between the black lining and the stocking, okay? The black cuff and the stocking. You want to pin it on the edge where the heel is, and like I said, you want to pin it between those 2 layers, and you want the loop to be pointing down. So the part that we just sewed closed is going to be the part that we're going to pin between the layers, all right? And now I've given this so much security. I am putting 5 blanket stitches in both directions, because this right here is going to hold the weight of whatever you put in the stocking. And this is a usable stocking. This is a strong sewed, hand sewed. There's nothing that you don't have to worry about popping seams open, and it's really going to hold whatever weight you put in it. So as long as you make that hanger secure enough, all right? And then I'm just going to continue to blanket stitch the lining, the stocking to the cuff on all sides. And again, we'll probably have to change our thread a couple of times. I think 2 more times. I think I had 3 whole changes, threads here. Okay? And then I know that's the hardest part, right? The patience of watching me sew. And once you get it all the way around, I'm going to show you how easy it is to just pull the loop and fold the cuff over. But again, if you want a completely finished stocking, you're going to do all the steps, except you'll turn your stocking inside out first. Or right side out first, I should say. And then you'll put the loop inside, and then continue the project the rest of the way the exact same way. But I really wanted to make this entire stocking with the raw edges. I really did love the way that no-sew pumpkin came out, and I was kind of trying to emulate that same feel for it. But I did want to show you guys how to, to give you both ideas. I basically wanted to show you both ways. So, like I said, if you want a completely finished stocking without any raw edges, you want to turn your stocking inside out first before you put the ring in, the cuff in, and sew it around, all right? So now we're getting all around to the edge. We're just about there. Let me think. Is there anything else? I think that's it. You can personalize these if you want. I wanted to say that too. What I would do is actually cut little letters out of the pieces of white towel to glue them on the black part of the towel, but that's just me. So here's what it looks like right side out. As you can see, the towel actually kind of perfectly lined up with the stripes. I didn't even do that on purpose. Normally I do. But here's what it looks like with its raw edges, and we folded over the cuff and pulled the little tab out. And there we have a nice finished edge. And that's it. So I love this. I want to make 20 more, but I got to go get more towels. If you have any questions at all, please leave them in the comments down below. Please give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. If you like the farmhouse Christmas stuff that we do. And if you haven't yet, click subscribe, and when you do, a little bell will pop up. When you ring that bell, YouTube will let you know whenever I upload a new video. And share with friends and family. Anybody you know might be interested in making this or learning some sewing tips. And if you guys want to take a shortcut, last year we made a no-sew stocking, so you can use this material on last year's tutorial. All right? As always, you take care. God bless. See you next time. Bye.